it's best to in fact just work it and use it and then get your right constituents there rather than saying have an actual measurement. So I'm going to put 3 cupfuls in here today. We have a mixture to make it easier for us today. So I'm going to put 3 of these cupfuls in here. Now, generally speaking, once you've got your mix in there, it's best to make a hole in the middle and then add your liquids from the centre here. And do it slowly and steadily. So I'm going to use a mixture of milk and water today. So as I'm doing it, I'm mixing it in to make the dough, and then I shall do it and let the mixture come into the centre and try to get a smooth mixture in the centre as I'm stirring here. And then as I'm doing this, I'm gradually bringing in a little bit of the mixture into that centrepiece. And then I can feel how that texture is getting on. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the milk mixture into this. The reason why I'm using a knife, not my hands, is to make sure I'm not putting too much heat into the mixture. And this is one advantage of having a steel bowl. That also will keep it cool. And by gradually adding a little bit more from the outside into that centerpiece, I can keep the mass going together, because when I tip it out on the mat in a moment, I'll want to try and get it out in one lump altogether, rather than little bits and pieces. Now, if there are any questions as I go, please do feel free to ask.
How come you didn't sift the flour?
Because I was lazy.
Ah, right. Should you sift it?
You can sift the flour if you want to.
Does it make a difference?
Some people say it does. Some people say as long as the mix is keeping that as smooth as possible, then that you should be fine.
Was the water and milk mixture, was that
Water there, and then sometimes if you use full cream milk, it can be a bit too heavy. So therefore, adding some water in with it is a good idea. If you have cream left over, some people put cream in with their mixture, and then with the actual water that they're using, that will help to dilute it. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this mixture, just to try and get the mixture as smooth as I can. Because I don't want the mixture too soft, otherwise when I cut the scones, they won't in fact hold the shape too well. Probably just do with an actual little smidgen of water. And if you put too much mixture in, all you can do is get your mix, and then you certainly would use the sieve to make sure it's very fine when it's going to be added, so you can just thicken up your mixture, as the case may be.
Excuse me, does it have to be room temperature milk or water?
Should be warm, room temperature, yes. Shouldn't be coming straight out of the fridge, otherwise it may be a bit too cold. It's best, it's like when you're cooking cakes, your eggs should always be at room temperature, so it makes it much easier. So I'm going to just let that sit in the bowl, and I'll be taking it out with the spatula in a moment. Then sometimes if you just leave it to rest for a little while, that's a good idea. And then you'll need to grease your scone tray thoroughly. And margarine is fine. Some people use cooking sprays, it's probably not so good. You don't want an olive oil spray or anything like that. So just a plain basic margarine spread is fine. And make sure you put plenty on, and make sure it goes into the corners, so that when they're in the oven, it will come out as a complete group on the rack there. So that's all ready to go. Now before I turn that out, I'm going to be using some self-raising flour here, and we've got the sieve. Yep. Okay. Here. Got a spoon? Okay. I'm just going to have to guesstimate. So I'm going to spread. Now I don't know whether any of you use these silicone baking mats. They're very handy. So it's quite a nice one to actually work on. But you do need to flour it. And this is why when you're putting the flour on here, you don't need to put the flour on the baking tray, because you'll already have it on your scones when you cut them. Okay. So I'm trying to keep my mixture all together, rather than breaking it up, so that we get the mixture coming straight onto the floured surface there as one complete.
Use the technical word, you call it a blob.
A blob. That's right.
Can I move this away, please?
Yes, you do. No, that's fine.
Oh, see.
And because I grew up with a mother who of course had been through the wartime in England, you just don't waste anything that's in the bowl. Mm-hmm. You make sure you have got the whole mixture out. And this is why these very soft little spatulas are very handy, because they will help you to get practically everything out of the bowl that you need to. Now the next stage is to again put a little bit of flour on the top there. Now some people say you should knead the scones. If you knead them too much, you're going to bring out the gluten and make them really too tough. So I just use the base of the silicone mat, and I just turn it over once and just put like that. And that's all I need to do.
Oh, really?
And if you work it too much, you're going to start building up the heat, and then you'll start getting the elasticity from the gluten, and that'll make a tougher scone. Now, you need to press them out so it's nice even, and you can see that the whole thing has clung together and stayed together, which is really what you want. Now, I'll just put a little bit of flour in the bottom there.
No butter at all inside?
No butter. We've got various recipes. We've got some scone recipes in our cookbooks on the stall, so you can go and investigate those afterwards. So this is the sort of situation you're going to try to get as many scones out of your mix as you can. I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to just sort of cut here, and I have a little scone, and that's going to go on the side. So I'll just move these out of the way. So what we try to do is pack as many scones as we can, so that they're going to rise. And on a tray this size, we would usually get 30 scones. And you don't want to touch them very much, just as they're coming out of your mixture here. If you think you've got something that's a bit too thick, you can just cut the end off and we can put it together afterwards.
offcuts, do you use them?
Yes, all offcuts, and this is why I floured the mat. And if anybody's not heard me, please feel free to ask and repeat again. Okay?
Afraid we're not very good with gadgets. We're old-fashioned.
Okay. You're going to pick me up.
I think you should do it. I'm lining to hear something. Sorry, everyone. That's right. Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, this is Jess.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So I packed them on the scones there. So, and using that little cutter, dipping that bottom in the flour so things don't stick. I have a knife somewhere here, so if I need to just take a little bit off the scone cutter. So, and if you think it's getting sticky on the bottom, you can just dust it in the flour on the bottom there.
They're all going to stick together though.
No, you'll find, well, they might just be close together, but when they come out of the oven, you can just break them off. That won't be a problem.
The whole idea is to get them in as close as possible, so there's only one way to go, and that's up.
It's up.
Ah,
We're giving away secrets.
right.
The other thing is that while the mixture is sitting here, it may start to rise. So this is why I'm patting it down, to try and keep the amount there. So I'm going to need to probably put a little bit more flour on the mat here. Flour on the mat here. Now if you put any mixtures in, supposing you were making date scones, you would make the mixtures I've made it up this morning, and then you would add the dates, and preferably put it in with some treacle as well. That gives another flavour. And so you cut the dates up very finely, put a little bit of water in, just soften them up, and then add 2 tablespoons of golden syrup or treacle, and then you'll get some nice brown scones, which will in fact
What's the difference between treacle and
golden syrup.
yeah?
The treacle is a much denser sugar.
At what stage you add the dates and the treacle?
After I did the mixture, as I was mixing, then I would mix them in. And
You can put it with the water.
No, I do the basic mixture first, then add your
At
other
the end,
flavourings.
yes.
Yes. So you might want to do cheese scones or something else like
Okay,
that.
right.
So working your way round, you can make sure that the little offcuts which you've noticed are minimised, but we can still use those at the end. Now if it gets a bit sticky, you probably need to just put your fingers in the flour. So as far as possible, we keep them as round as possible. So anybody can make scones. People who say they can't, you either haven't got the oven at the right temperature. The oven should be 220, and you should only be cooking them for about 12 to 14 minutes, not too long, and cook them fast. The other thing is that some people change the tray round 2/3 of the way round. Some people just leave them in the oven, let them come as they are.
Do you brush the top with milk?
You can brush the top with milk if you wish, but you don't have to.
And you can dust with flour as well.
Yes. Because I've floured the top and I
Yes,
turned it
you don't
over,
need.
I don't need to add any more flour on there.
That's very good. Thank you.
Now what I'm going to do with these leftovers, nothing needs to be wasted, but I don't want to handle it too much, so I often use the knife and just pat it so it comes together again and makes a nice firm dough. And I just pat it down with the knife. So I want to try and still get the last scones as smooth as the other ones. And sometimes we just keep these for the cook if it looks as if they're a little bit scrappy at the end.
The cook should get the best one.
The cook always gets the leftovers. So it doesn't matter if your last little scone is just a little bit of a mixture like that. You've got there. So what you've got then is the pack tray, and the oven, you hope, is at 220 degrees. It'll go straight into the oven. Keep it on the middle shelf, don't put it on the top or the bottom shelf. And as you can look through your oven, most of you have got a nice glass door on your oven, you'll see them steadily rising and they'll start to brown on the top. And if you've got an oven that's a little bit too hot, then if you see them all browned all over, then bring them out and put them on a baking rack